let's see. Let's do the side. This one. What's this?
Oh, look what I found.
Oh! Welcome back
Hello.
to the channel of the Dart Players. And I have the pleasure to be with DJ Clero, the winner of the Trench
Yes,
Showcase.
yes. Only winner of the trench cage on in the whole world for the moment. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yes.
yes. So everybody was expecting this deck tech of Trench Data Vault, who performed so well in the Lille regional qualifier. And so, first comments. What do you have to
So
say?
just, I mean, a lot of things, but just about the showcase, since this is a bit of an anomaly, is actually
Yeah.
no, if anything like this happened yet or will again. But I have to say a big thanks to FFG because the history behind this showcase. So I did perform way beyond like my wildest expectations for this tournament. But I didn't perform well enough to actually earn a showcase theoretically because I didn't do the top 64. I scored I went 69th in Lille in the regional qualifier with over 800 players. So it's still very good for me. But technically, you need to be in top 64 to get a showcase. But there's a very heartwarming story. I was at the side event on the following day, and then I was reached by a member of FFG. I don't remember their name, but they were very nice to me, and they said and made me very emotional because they said they really appreciated the originality of the deck and the effort and the attempt to do something unique, and the run was still good enough, like I barely didn't make it, so that they wanted to give me a showcase regardless. And so yeah, they made the kid happy, and that kid is myself. Yeah, very very happy. I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
got the showcase. Thanks to FFG. Thanks for the whole for the heart. Thanks for making this character as well. It was amazing. Really good fun to play.
Oh, yeah. It was really fun to see you playing against your opponent. And we're gonna talk about it. But first of all, I
Yeah,
mean,
it was like
yeah, yeah.
it was a very fun game on stream. Like, thank you for the streams as well for having us there. And I don't know, you have any questions? You tell me what you want to talk about.
Oh, I'm gonna ask you later. But I mean, first of all, comment to this video. I mean, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it before, and join our Discord channel. And we're gonna say thank you to FFG for this big opportunity. And yeah, we start here with the deck image of your deck, Trench Datafold, who surfed the dream, and I'm gonna ask you to spend like a few words about your deck. Why Trench?
Haha, this is I was expecting this. So white ranch, there are two reasons. Like the first one is of course, like I just like this leader. I like the image, I like the character, but I think is actually very strong. Like I wouldn't go like I love memes, but I wouldn't go with a complete meme. Like he does something that no other leader ever can do. You have infinite deploys. Like technically, like I think in some games I've gone up to 5 deploys. Like in some games I didn't even deploy once, so it's different. But in a lot of games you just deploy one, like a couple of times, and deploying a couple of times is insane. So of course, there are downsides, and then we might talk about them. But like, I do think it's really strong. It is something unique. So I wanted to make this work. I like the grindy decks. I like the decks that can draw cards. So it draws a card technically every time it deploys, and a leader deploying is an extra card in a way. So it's a great card advantage engine. But so that's the first reason I wanted to try him out. The second reason is something that maybe can help other people as well when they think how to approach a tournament. Because I'm not sure this is a great call into the meta. Yeah, but like in a way, the meta is so wild that you're gonna meet a lot of different things. But this was a great call for my way to tackle something that was a problem for me when I was approaching tournaments. So I'll give with you. I'll go with you through the reasoning that I had to come up with Admiral Trench. Basically, my reasoning generally in tournaments is very practical. I have anxiety when I go against the clock. Yes. So I struggle against time because I like to play grindy decks. And with grindy decks, often you go to draw. You can't have three games, especially at 55 minutes. And then what happened to me many other times is that I really wanted to finish game three. I would go for a misplay, I would lose, and then I would go 2-1. And because I really needed, like, I couldn't accept the draw. So my reasoning was, well, I want a deck that if I draw, is kind of okay because it has a very good matchup against other grindy decks. So what happens here is that, like, if I get a draw, I'm most likely gonna play against another grindy slow deck. But now with this deck, I have a game plan that is okay against like most other decks, but it's really good against other decks that have drawn. So that's actually what kind of happened. So once, like, if it happens that I have a grindier matchup and I get a draw, I get like the matchups I'm gonna have are all matchups that are favorable for me, generally speaking. And that made me approach the tournament with a lot of more of peace of mind because I knew that, like, if I lose, I lose, okay, yeah. But if time is no more is no longer a factor because, like, I can get a draw and it's still I can get 10 draws, but if it's early enough, it's still a good thing for me. So that was it. In terms of a meta call, I didn't know what to expect. It's a big tournament. I knew there are, like, we all know that the decks that are more popular. So I had to have some sort of game or a pretty decent game into all of them, at least 50-50 or like 65-35. But I knew that I would meet kind of whatever, and that's exactly what happened.
And yeah, we're gonna discuss your run about yesterday. So 2 days ago, sorry. But yeah, this is the whole deck image, but we're gonna go in depth after all. First, we're gonna see the statistics of the deck. So a little bit general. What can you say about that?
I mean, and just like, like, just for people that don't know, Admiral Trench is a unit that allows you to cycle through your deck. So you discard cards that cost three or more, and then as a cost to deploy, cost three, you deploy, but you can deploy for as long as you want. And I think that Data Vault, for me, like, I mean, everyone now appreciates this base, but I think it was even before it became a bit more popular, it was always a natural choice for Admiral Trench.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because green is not as controlly as other colors, but allows you to have Palpatine's Return, which is an amazing card. Is actually one of the very few cards that interact with the discard pile. So the awkwardness is that it costs six, so it's really hard to play it on curve when your leader costs three and deploys on 5. So that you need to find ways to get around that. But apart from that, it's the main reason why I used green. And Data Vault allows you to have a thicker deck as well, so it's a generally good base. But with this leader, you have the power to mitigate against some one of the weaknesses of Data Vault, which is making your deck bigger than usual. Because on the one hand, you cycle through it, so you can see more cards, and on the other hand, this acts as a sort of like counter plan for people that want to mill you, even though if you have the right cards, you don't mind a mill plan either because you can counter a mill with the restock and you can come up with your deck infinitely. So I think, yeah, Data Vault is like, it's just really nice as a base in general.
Mm-hmm.
And in here, if it's pretty decently, there would be arguments to go 30 HP as well because you need some specific combos for some specific matchups. But overall, it's just such a good base that, like, I didn't mind it in this build. And then, so this is the idea. You can see, like, we will see there's lots of underworld cards because the underworld package is the strongest in the scholars. And so in a way, it's a deck that's very similar to Cat Bane, but it's somewhere between Palpatine yellow and Cat Bane green. But it has like the advantage over Palpatine yellow. It has the advantage that you can run Data Vault, which is an excellent base with extra health and like allows you to be very resilient and have like a lot of different cards to tag for different matchups in your main board, which is really, really important. And the difference with Cat Bane green is that we have a great matchup against control, whereas cat being green sometimes struggle. Like, of course, you're weaker in against an aggro deck, but you have a resilience that cat bane decks don't have naturally, even though cat bane is an amazing leader, anyways. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, I just wanted to point out that we have seen a lot of Data Vault decks. Even the champion
Yeah.
who plays Bean Data Vault. So,
Genius, Absurgin, shout out to him. Yeah, yeah.
oh, really, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Shout out, props to him. I mean, a new card. It's like a totally surprise for everybody. So we can now move on to see your performance in the tournament.
Yes.
Okay, so
So
ranks. Wow.
yeah. So I kind of remember by heart. So I think, yeah, I started off against Han Green. He was a really nice guy, and I was like, that's a matchup that, if someone has a great start and they play their like stolen holder and put you back on it, you need to have specific answers. So it was kind of a race. It was they were close games, but it went well. Then I went against Boba Yellow.
Yeah.
Think he was a really nice guy. That one was kind of easier because I got all the frozen in carbonite and just froze all his space. And again, like it was mostly a race. Like this deck is very good at racing. You get like if you get something early, you can win a race. You don't need to be a hard control or anything like that. And then I think I went against Cat Bane Red.
Yeah.
And this was an exceptionally good player, really, really good. It was I didn't understand a lot because he didn't speak much English. He spoke a bit for like I had to communicate in French. But from what I understood, he was a seasoned Cat Bane player, and I could see it in the way he was playing. And so those were again really close matchups. But this is where we didn't have time to finish because they were really complex matchups. And I was like, okay, normally if I play the blue hero deck like Blue Hero Control. That's what I played a lot in the last sets. I would be worried because then that puts me against other control decks. But with Admiral Trench, yes, I think we had a bit of a break. We are back. So I was saying that this campaign player was really good. They were really, really close matchups because, like, even if he has no top hand really in the Cat Bane red deck, he can do a lot of tricks with McClunky and so on and so forth and put a lot of pressure. So I had to ramp to really get over him easily. And but in the end we drew because there wasn't time to finish the last game. And in a way, I was kind of happy with Trench to take the draw because, as I said before, I used to play a lot of Blue Hero control decks, and those ones have a really bad matchup against other control decks. But this is a control deck that has a good matchup against other control decks, so I didn't mind. And in a way, that's kind of what happened. I went against other people that drew, so I went against Anakin Blue or Anakin Colossus. I don't remember if I think it
Colossus.
was Colossus, but
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. Colossus, yes. And again, it was close. Like Anakin is a matchup that is kind of readable if you're not aggro. You never attack the base before Anakin deploys. Then you stall Anakin or you kill it, and then you start the real game. And so the plan went perfectly. Game one, game two, I think he got a dragon or like he tricked me in some way. I couldn't perform this game plan efficiently enough. I didn't have way to deal with Anakin, I think, and. We had the deck checked, so that took away a lot of concentration from a lot of focus. But game three was a really, really grindy long game, and then I got Maul at the end to push for the final damage when otherwise we would have gone to time. Then the next game I think was Kira Green,
Yeah.
Kira Data Vault,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's a relatively easy matchup because like it's not like I mean there's no easy matchup in a tournament like that. But yeah, it's a deck that we I was prepared for, and it's beatable. It's the target of this kind of deck. Then I went against Anakin again, another really really good German player, and I think it was 3-1. Like like all of those were close games, but in the end, like through endurance and like not losing focus. another game that went like to the last 2 minutes of the time. It went well. And then there is the game in the stream that actually was a matchup that, like, you need to put a lot of concentration into that, especially because I hadn't had, like, this kind of runs. I didn't have any time to eat properly. We had to take I took a bit of croissant every in between matchups, but like there wasn't a proper break because it's so long. So basically, if you want to eat, you need to play Sabine or something like that. Otherwise, you need to eat in between matches. But and that one was on stream, so we had a little bit of more time to set up, like talk with the people. It was really, really nice. It was amazing. And I think someone else was meant to go on stream. We went anyways. But yeah, it was a really, really, really nice Swedish guy. I, I made a gaff. I told him I thought he was Danish from the name, but no, he was Swedish. And he said he wanted to play against my deck, but I think in that kind of matchup, if you can get the only thing that can happen is that either one of his ships gets out of control, like you don't know what to do about that. You can't counter it, and it kills you in a few hits. That's a problem. Or if you have if restock is somehow in your hand or in your discard pile, usually in this deck against a hard control deck, you can bounty hunter crew, then you can palpatine return the bounty hunter crew. So the only way you get really screwed is if accidentally you use Mongol Abazine and restock gets into your resources. There isn't any way to get it out of there. That's a problem. You need to go for a different to check the resources. You need to go for a different plan. So to have a full plant hard control deck, in theory, I don't know if you follow me, I should add the free cost to two Javas that allow you to take something from the resources. I used to have it like at some point, but it's a card that is so useless in so many other matchups that I couldn't afford it to even include them in the 60 cards in the main deck. I would if it was Underworld, but it's not. It's just a Java. So if you want to be really safe against our control, you should put that card as well. But for this, like, since this is not really meta, this amount of setup is generally fine. You can beat the hard control deck. You can cycle your deck forever if if you play around what they're doing. And so up till there, I was 6-1 draw. So I was pretty happy. I was like, it was widely beyond like my expectation. I was starting to believe like, oh, no, okay, I need to win one game. And then what happened is that I was matched against someone that didn't draw. So someone that like not a grindy deck. I was matched against Sabine. It was actually a really young guy. I think he was in high school, but it was a it was also it wasn't like casual Sabine player. It was a monster. I think he went to day two. I don't know if he did top 16 or top 32.
Mm.
It was really, really, like, I saw him on one of the top tables. He was really good. And Sabine is not an ideal matchup like for this. Or you can imagine, is a matchup that is beatable. Like, you can see there are lots of techs against Sabine, and it depends on the Sabine player, but I would say 65-35 in favor of no 60-40 in favor of Sabine, something like this. Or it depends on how well they know what you're doing and how well they can play around you. And most importantly, as every game against Sabine, it depends on what you draw.
Mm.
So if they draw the nuts, they draw the nuts. If you draw the nuts, you draw the nuts. So you need to have like like you need to counter Sabine games plan, but you don't have a lot of time. You need to counter Sabine's game plan in those 3 or 4 rounds when the Sabine. So you need to draw the cards that you need, like, and then when we see the cards, I can tell you which ones are the ones that like kind of win against Sabine. So it wasn't a complete disaster. It went 2-1. He got the first game, I got the second, but then in the end, he played a Chewbacca that I couldn't handle with my evacuate from the side, and that was it. And then still, I had one final chance to make it to day two, but I didn't get that. Like, didn't take that chance because I was matched against what was, I think, the strongest deck I've met in the whole day. Like, what really, really demolished me and countered me, and I hadn't prepared against that deck, and I think it's a really, really bad matchup, and it's a really strong deck overall. It was Bosk green, sorry, and I think he played a dragon by the time before I could deploy my leader. He played a Crate Dragon, which is something that this deck can deal with Crate Dragons, but it needs a board to deal with the Crate Dragons. It can't deal with Crate Dragons without a board. And he ramped so much, he destroyed everything I was doing. And that game, I didn't see the ramp, but like even if I saw it, I don't have the same amount of ramp that this guy had. and it just outran me completely. It was the only game where I felt like, yeah, in this case there isn't a lot I can do. This is just a matchup that I wasn't prepared for, and I can't cope with. Like, so boss green. I don't think there were many boss green players. It's a legitimate deck. It's a very good deck. So I don't know why people don't play it more. But that was the end of the run, and I got in the end 6 wins, and then the two final losses. So I didn't make it to day two. But still, I was very happy. You know, I was preparing for side events. I was expecting to go for a tour of Lille. So it was wildly way more. I didn't come like I hadn't prepared a lot. Like I had tested the deck just to give you an idea. I had tested the deck a little bit on Karabast and then with Jama from Dark Players for a couple of hours on a Sunday, and that's it. I didn't even own an Admiral Trench like a leader card. I had to borrow it from someone else. I never played it in real life. I just wanted to see how it worked. It was an experiment. It still is an experiment. Like, you know, I was there. I have 9 rounds to really test this leader that I really like. Let's see how if it works and what can you do, what you can do. But yeah,
Oh yeah. Wow. This a whole run. Oof. I mean, we can
yeah.
move
I
on.
talk a lot, so cut me if
Yeah.
you know if I
No,
take
no,
too
no,
much
no, no, no,
time.
no. Please, please go ahead. But we can just talk about the composition of your deck. So we can start from the 2 cost drop in the ground
Yes.
section. What can you say about that?
Or the stats, yes, of the deck. So
Oh, yeah, we can go
I
with the
mean, we
stats.
will.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I mean, yeah, and I don't know what was like. As you see, the curve is a bit all over the place. This is something that, like, I'll be honest, in this color combination, there aren't really amazing 6 cost cards. So I played a lot of Hondo Yellow, and what I like to do on the leader on 6 is play the blaster anyways, and Trench is perfect for that because what Trench allows you to do, it forces you to play a free cost card on turn 6. And it's not ideal, but it's not like I mean, you're actually missing out on Palpatine's return. But other than that, there isn't an insane 6 cost card in these colors that you really want to play on curve. So that's why you see a lot of free costs because usually they try to combo with Trench. And also they're necessary, they're needed because you need to card. I wish you could discard cheaper cards that would make the deck a lot stronger, but you can't. You need to have something that costs 3 or more to discard to trigger his ability. So there are like the amount of ones and twos are there to because you need early plays, you need the cheap plays,
Yep.
because you have a data vault deck. So you know you need a lot of cheap plays to make sure you hit them on curve, and then everything else is just the juice, the real cards that you know the deck allows you to go through.
Yeah.
And one thing that I would say is that actually. A downside that is kind of like I thank FFG for giving me the showcase, but I wish they hadn't like they had made Trench a little bit better. A big downside of Admiral Trench is the fact that when he deploys, your opponent chooses the cards you're not gonna take, and so in a way you get card advantage, but you filter your deck in a way that you're always gonna get the bad cards. So it's not really good unless you hit well. So in a way I wish I need to find ways to fix it. Maybe even more graveyard interaction, especially if the meta slows down a little bit, which I don't see it happening anytime soon. But yeah, if uh, if you could discard 2 cards cost, yeah, if you could discard cards that cost 2 or less, it would make it a little bit better. As it is, it's a bit like this card. The fact that your opponent chooses the cards you're not gonna take hurts your best way than I anticipated. So that is that. And in terms of units, events, and upgrades, yes, I have a lot. Like that's a good. Like you can see, the math is slightly different than a normal deck because we are running Data Vault. But still, this is what you would have in a slow, grindy, like control, like slow mid-range deck. Like a lot of events and upgrades,
Yeah.
and you can get away with this because you have infinite units. So like you can't really get away with like this amount of events and upgrades, uh, because if you go against control, you're not going to have enough units to play. But if you have infinite leaders, you can get away with this and still play units every round against control. So This is the good thing about Trench. It allows you to play lots of events, lots of like interaction without worsening your control matchup anyways, because you don't need to mill the opponent. You can still win with damage, still win with units without playing units because you have infinite units from your leader. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, also by looking the chart of the pie chart of the aspect, we can see that there is the majority of yellow cards uh, rather than green.
yeah. Yeah, I decided to go with that because there are some cards that are kind of key. Like, I mean, they're not insane, but like they're clutch, especially against aggressive decks. Carta Spacer and Gamorrean Guards.
Hmm.
Especially Carta Spacer is really good against Sabine, and Gamorrean Guards are not bad either. And both of them require you to have a yellow unit in play. So I decided to go with this instead of something like Gamorrean Retainer, which is the 3/2
Yeah.
because like the green like most of the underworld units are yellow anyways to have a full-on uh, green underworld deck is hard and your leader is yellow so you have infinite yellow units whenever you need them so yeah, all the cards that synergize with yellow makes more sense.
Okay. Um. So we have talked about a little bit of the statistics. We talked before with about the leader and the base. So now we can skip with the why looking at the singular cards that compose your deck. So we can start from the ground 2 cost drop. So Bazin, Bib Fortuna, and Crafty Smuggler. Why then?
What a trio. I mean, I will start from the Crafty Smuggler actually, because like Crafty Smuggler as a one-off is kind of sad. Like it is just there because it's an okay one drop, and I needed an extra one drop to fit with the curve. So if I found something else, or if anyone has any suggestion, I tried like a Vazan or someone else, but it just I couldn't really finish off the curve with anything better than a Crafty Smuggler, and it's still decent. Whereas the other two are really, really, really the heavy lifters. I mean, Bazin is an insane card. Is especially good because you know if you don't, you can play it turn one is okay turn one, but is actually a stunning card later on. To become okay turn one, you need to play like give her a gun round two, so you can play something or McClunky or whatever. Big Fortuna is actually the key of this deck because not only I found out that's something that's really strong against Sabine specifically. I didn't realize that if you put a gun on Big Fortuna, you got a free shielded that trades immediately with the Battlefield Marine or another one two cost card on ground. So it's really good. But that's not his main reason. You can do that with a Crafty Smuggler. His main reason is that it allows like the combos to go through. So specifically, there are two combos in this deck that require a bit of cheaper interaction. The one that comes to my mind, the most important one is Palpatine's Return. So we can like it's kind of clunky to play it. You can do it, and I have done it. But ideally, you know, if you want maximum value, you shouldn't play it when you have 6 resources because that's when your leader deploys. But if you have a big Fortuna on the play, you can play for cheaper. You can pay 5 and play your Palpatine's Return. So you can play a mole for 5 resources, and if you ramped, that's a mole on turn four. So mole on turn four, it can attack immediately like a unit, a leader if it's a bin, and it can pop the shield of Big Fortuna. That's really good. And another great combo with Big Fortuna is the same combo, and that works for both mole and Cat Bane. You can play in turn one, do something else, like you know, stall or like play an upgrade or play ramp or play like a super laser technician is gonna like whatever. You can do something else on turn two, or you can bounce him with McClunky and replay him. But most importantly, when you have 4 resources, you can use Big Fortuna, play now there are two of them, and then you can play a 7 cost on turn three.
Oh,
This is really important because like the deck is very slow, yes. But what I noticed against other faster decks, you can't in these colors necessarily uh, stall them forever. You need to put like some early big threat that they need to deal with or take damage from. And then if you put a big threat against a faster deck, then you put them in a clock. So either you use the threat to attack their like 25 HP base, or they need to deal with your threat and then they slow themselves down so much that then they can't recover from that. Also, it's important because we are playing barrage. So if you can play 7/7 on turn 4 and then barrage, I don't know any deck, any mid range like fair deck that can recover from that. And this is the idea. And of course, there's plenty of other combos like Big Fortuna allows you to ramp for cheaper. It can make McClancy free. It's I wish like some of the upgrades that we run were events, but like so that there would be more synergy. But yeah, still pretty good. Big Fortuna is kind of needed in this deck.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to 3 cost
Perfect.
drop.
Yes. So I have, I mean, Boba Fett. This card used to cost a lot. It's actually the card that convinced me the least in the run. I think he didn't do a lot. I'll be honest. Like, it's a card that I put there to counter like aggressive decks because it's good against Sabine. It's decent, but and is an underworld. But of course, like it's been a while since he could attack leaders the moment they deploy. It's still pretty decent, but it would be the first card that I would remove. It didn't really convince me, but it's still like a very strong 3/5 that can attack for 6 or can kill another unit. It's a decent, like good unit that you can always discard in late game because it costs 3 or more. And Super Laser Technician is a card that I wish I played more based on the run that I had because it's like the reason I have only one is because in aggressive matchups I was really afraid of a lot of space aggro or like or very aggressive matchups, and in these matchups Super Laser Technician is very bad, and so that's why I have one in the main and one in the side. I didn't even go for free just to give more time to Boba Fett because Boba Fett is a lot better against an aggressive matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But Super Legitimation was so good in all other matchups that yes, I don't discover it. Like it's just really good against slower matchups. It's hard to find the balance because, of course, you would need to know what you're gonna play against. But probably, like I would reconsider. You can go to up to two Super Laser Technicians in the main and two effects, something a bit more even. I think that would work. And but that's the way I tried it.
Okay. So going further, we can see other 2 cards.
Yes, I mean, Gamorrean Guards is just a very solid 4 drop. Like I ran him on in instead of Forlom because Forlom as a 4/4 ambush is not that good in my opinion. It's very good with Cat Bane as a 5/4. I mean, kind sort of a 5/4 ambush, but without the ping from Cat Bane, I'm not a fan of the card. There are many 3/4s you want to trade into, whereas Gamorrean Guards are pretty fine. Like it's not the most it's a common. It's not the most stunning card in the universe, but it stalls a lot. It's still a 4/4. It's hard to pass through for most decks. It's annoying, and it protects your leader. You can on 7 you can deploy your leader and play Gamorrean guards if you don't have anything better to do. It's a solid unit. It's a solid curve filler for 4. It's not stunning, but it's solid and it does what it needs to do, and I love the guys from Star Wars. So, but it worked. It's a card that worked. There is a big problem, as you can see with all these units, including the leader. There's a lot of 4 attack. So one of the things that I struggle in this run is that in terms of math, like you're very well positioned to deal with units with odds, no, with even health, so 4, 6, 2. But you're struggling a little bit to deal with units with the odd health, like 7, 5, and those are the most important ones. So I think I need to find different ways to deal with the units with odd health because this is really where the deck would begin to shine. Maybe surprise strikes, some tricks. But for the moment, Bosk as a 5 drop that you can play with. Now there are 2 of them, of course, but most importantly, you can even play on 5 after you ramped. It's just very nice. Like, and the ping is something that in these colors allows you allows you to put damage where you need them. I think my favorite, my funniest combination, a combo with boss that won me a game against Sabine
Mhm.
was killing a Luke unit, the green Luke with their supply. So I played their supply, and then 2 damage to Luke. And yeah, when you can play their supply and deal damage, it's just I found it really hilarious, but it's also very strong. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Boss
I
is
like
very
boss.
strong. Okay, let's see the late game.
Late game. I mean, Bounty Hunter's crew. That's I'm gonna talk about it later because it's a bit of a standalone standout card. I mean, I can talk about it now. Like Bounty Hunter's crew basically is a card that is there not just but mainly mostly for control, for like really heavy control because of course you don't want to be milled. You're milling yourself. The opponent thinks they're gonna mill you and they're so happy about it. But but with Bounty Hunter crew you can get back your stocks. And what actually allows these decks to really pop is that with Palpatine's return you have like 4 Bounty Hunters crews and so 5 different restocks, like a lot of options to get back restock. But the good thing is Bounty Hunter crew doesn't need to get back restock. It can also like in different games it happened. Like I don't remember which one specifically, but you can get back a Palpatine's return with Bounty Hunter's crew, and then with that Palpatine's return you can get back whatever you need from your from your from your resources from your discard pile. So if you're on 12, you can theoretically do Bounty Hunter crew for 12, and it's 12 costs 12, but can win you the game on the spot if the opponent is like not interacting with you, or if you can see a way to get through as a cheap unit to make sure you put damage in. And then Cat Bane and Maul are the essence of the deck. I mean, Maul is insane because it's both Force and Underworld. That's like, I mean, without Maul, this deck wouldn't even exist at
Mhm.
all, like not even close, because Force makes it so that it is cheaper with Palpatine's return. So you can actually play him 6 or 5. Um, that's really good, of course. And then he's still underworld, so he synergizes with the rest of the deck. An honorable mention would be to Darth Vader, which is another really strong 7 cost. But from what I tested out, it wasn't good enough to make it into a deck, which is very weird to say, considering how much the card used to cost and still costs. But it's just that it's not underworld, and the things that you are tutoring with him are okay, but they're not insane. And especially like 5 attack is good, especially early on, but it's not good enough that I would play him over Maul, Cad Bane, or even someone like Afra unit. Cad Bane is absolutely insane. Is a card that is pretty bad against control because obviously it's just like if the opponent can remove it, it's just buying you 1 turn. That's not good. But it's absolutely stunning against aggressive decks. Like Cad Bane single-handedly putting Cambane in the deck improved the Sabine matchup by a lot. Like this is the card you need against Sabine, and especially putting now there are 2 of them and Cad Bane is the tag that made the Sabine matchup spike insanely because Cad Bane is really good. Like if the opponent doesn't have an easy way to deal with him, doesn't have like a Felder Dragon in the hand, and they need to manually deal 7 to this dude, or they need to burn one of their units and so on and so forth, and then you can just like take it back the next round with Palpatine's return. That's really like that makes them at least if they can't deal with him, it's a 7/7 that they can get a gun and attack for 9, so that's 18 in 2 rounds. That's nearly a whole base. Uh, if they cannot deal with it, it's dangerous. If they have to deal with it, they have wasted so much time that what are gonna do? Like when they have wasted that amount of time, it their game plan is gone kind of astray. So you have time to bring on your game plan. And yeah, these two, Maul and Cad Bane, are the absolute stars of the deck. Absolutely insane. Yeah, they are the what makes the deck work.
Oh yeah, you can say that out loud. But we can shift to space
Hello?
units.
I can. Space units. Yeah, not a lot of space. I mean, these are. like the very different categories. Like Carter Spacer is I didn't always cover it as a nice cheap space unit. You can tap Sabine and all the rest. Contracted Jump Master is not ideal. 2/4 with like Sabine's masterpiece going around is not the best stat line, but still decent enough in these colors that you can stop an attack. And it's an emergency card to deal with like full-on space decks that otherwise are really hard to deal with. Of course, for a deck like I'm thinking about Fade Evader 4 didn't meet any of these decks, so it wasn't like a problem. But the good thing is that it costs free as well, so you can always cycle it. There is no problem. If you draw it and you don't need it, you can just throw it away and nothing bad happens. So decent card. And then Relentless Devastator. I mean, Relentless as a one-off is insane because it gives you good matchups against aggressive decks, against I mean any deck, if they haven't put you on a clock by the time you can get an outer relentless. Very few decks have excellent ways to deal with it. Of course, they can receive they can like if you're playing against a deck that has like a Devastator, Avenger, and Annihilator, they can deal with relentless. But still, if you with free Palpatine returns in your main deck, that means you can have 4 relentlesses if you want. It's a very good card. And Devastator, yes. I mean, you playing a 60 card like control deck in this, like you need a sort of a finisher. There is another Devastator in the side. It's just the card that like says, okay, deal with this or I won the game, and just very good, amazing.
Yeah.
Can
Devastator.
deal with anything.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the late clock. Okay, so we can go to
So
the
what is
events.
funny is that in theory,
Yeah.
yes. Uh, Yeah, I'm gonna link it now. In theory, in this deck, because mostly the Devastator is very often I mean, if you see Devastator early, you just discard it. You can play it one turn earlier, all of these cards, if you have big Fortuna and you Palpatines return them. So sometimes the opponent doesn't expect it. I mean, maybe they expect it, but it just like having it a turn earlier, it may make the difference in certain matchups. And this is because Big Fortuna and Palpatine's return are allowed for that. So starting from Palpatine's return, this card is absolutely insane. Is the reason why, at least in this deck, is the reason why I went for green. Is amazing. I really hope in the next set there are going to be more forced units to make it even more buffed. I even considered playing Snoke, and I at some point like tested it in this deck, and because still you would pay like in certain matchups you would be okay paying 2 extra for Snoke. But yeah, it's a stunning card. The only problem is that it costs 6, and it's the same cost as it kind of messes up with your leader deploy, at least on the first time. So, but still, with Big Fortuna, there are ways to get around. Of course, I wish the interaction was smoother, but for the moment, still an outstanding card in this deck. And Overwhelming Barrage, well, I don't need to explain about or anything about Overwhelming Barrage. One thing this deck struggles is to find like nice hit on curve, because as you early game are not really buffed units, so that's something to think about in terms of improving the deck for the future. Some like stronger, like buffer, like early games plays, but it's still an insane card. Now there are 2 of them. Might look weird when you have 60 cards, but the idea, I think, one of the traps of this card is that like you don't need to play it on turn 2 for it to be good. So I've seen like recently there was a Cat Dane deck, I think Mephisto, a nice guy I know, that did really well at Richmond, and he wasn't even playing it if I checked. Wait, and this was like one of the I may be wrong, but this was a trademark card of Cat Bane. And
Yep.
so one of the traps is that you might think you need to play it on turn 2, and in this deck you have options. I have done it. I played Bosk on turn 2, but with Tarkin Town playing a unit on turn 2, even a 6/6 Zuckuss, it's not that good because the opponent can always I mean, it's good, but like it's not as insane as you might think. But what really, really, really is insane is playing at turn 7 to like a 7 cost unit 2 turns earlier. So And that can happen like, if you ramp. So the ideal opening is you play some cheap underworld unit nobody cares about, then you ramp, and then you play Now There Are Two of Them. And against an aggressive matchup, if you play a Cat Bane or a Mole on turn for on when the opponent has four resources, that's a deal breaker. And you can get away with this because we have units, but we don't have so many units. So if you play a unit one round and then an event the next round, you very often end up with having just one unit. If you have multiple units, what's really nice is that you have McClunky. So you can bounce your units back so that you have only one to play. Now there are two of them. And now there are two of them costs free as well. So if late game, when this card is absolutely dead, you just discard it. You don't need it. So with Admiral Trench, you can always do that and get rid of what you don't need later on. Or in the specific, if you draw it at the beginning and you don't like it, you just get rid of it. Like if you feel like the matchup or the situation is not good for it, you can always discard it. McClunk is insane because it's one of the few ways this deck can do like the cross arena damage. Like you take someone from the ground and do damage on the space. It allows you to play your underworld units multiple times, and it's specifically good with like the bounty hunter crew because it allows to make the cycling even deeper. It's an absolute stunner, and it's free if you have Big Fortuna, so it's great.
Hell yeah. So, the other events?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, other events, restock is a one-off, is needed. I haven't seen any trench deck that doesn't play restock because you want to make sure you can deploy your leader as much as you want. So you want to make sure you can shuffle your deck back. What this deck has over other colors is that you play Bounty Hunter Crew, yes, but you can play only one restock and one Bounty Hunter Crew because your Palpatine's Return, which is something that would play anyways, can act as ways to get back a restock. So, essential card, not very useful in many matchups, but like game breaking in other matchups. Resupply is very good. It's an event, as we said. So in this deck, I rate it higher. Like I prefer a supply over Super Laser Technician because it doesn't cost an action uh, to get the value from the ramp. It can work even if your opponent has no units or has units in space, and it's an event, so it goes with Bosk, and it's cheaper with Big Fortuna and all of that. And No Good to Me Dead is an absolutely insane card. I play without this card, I struggle as a player because it just stops the leader for a couple of rounds, and it's insane on Django, it's insane on Sabini. It's just like I don't like. I mean, people play this like I've been playing this for years, but yeah, still as good. I would never go below three of those in any yellow villain deck, as personally, because if it's a grindy deck, it's just insane.
So you're saying that you have to run these three cards. Okay.
No, I have to say, and I have to run free off of No Good to Me Dead. Like personally as a player, I like to do that. Like I don't even think about it. But other people like maybe put it in the sideboard, just a strong card.
Okay. So we can finish with the upgrades.
So I think there is a mistake in the PowerPoint. The
Yeah,
the
yeah.
blaster is free off.
Whoops.
So
Whoopsie.
all these are free offs. So these are maybe slightly more unusual cards. And um I will start with the blaster because with this amount of units, it may look like weird, but actually is the card that like, performed the best out of all the whole deck, maybe together with Palpatine's Return in the whole run. It's the card that stunned me, that won me the most games. It's absolutely insane for all the reasons everybody knows. But of course, like you can play it on curve and trade with another unit with your like lame one drops, or it's really really good on Admiral Trench because it allows Trench to trade with units he wouldn't trade with. Obviously, you don't want your leader to survive. You don't care. You want your leader to die because you want to deploy it again. Like or at the same time, it allows to put a lot of pressure because it gives the leader +2 or whatever unit You play it, you attack with an extra two, and then you're threatening the same amount of damage in the next round. So the opponent is forced to do with whatever you're doing to claim, is get they get scared. But specifically, this is true of every deck. In this specific deck, it's very good because you can put it on your leader without going down in cards at all. Actually, without having to play two cards in that round because your leader allows you to play something for free anyways. It makes you trade. It makes your leader trade with other things that your leader wouldn't trade with, and yeah, it's just amazing. The other two cards are a bit more contentious, like are a bit more if I may say so myself. Frozen in Carbonate, absolute stunner, is an insane card that like can act basically as a Fell the Dragon later on. I mean, there are certain cards like the Dragon where you would rather have a Fell the Dragon, but there are certain cards like the Annihilator that have when defeated effects that you really need to kill, and Frozen in Carbonite is really good for that. Also, is an excellent card on curve or early on. I mean, on curve, it's still okay. It's a kind of like a power of the dark side, more or less, very often. And it can be played on a super laser technician, but not against the deck like Hero or Palpatine that can kill it. Otherwise, it's really fun in other matchups. Uh, but most importantly, it's a card that can stop. It was very good against Han Solo because if Han Solo puts ramps, Han Solo, I mean Han Solo 1 green, for example, ramps puts a strong vehicle like a Millennium Falcon or a stolen hauler, I think that's the name, on scene space, and then they put Chewbacca on top. You can't waylay that card anymore, otherwise it would be very strong. But you can still freeze it in Carbonite, and so at that point, basically you stop their whole play. So that's why I find Frozen in Carbonite better than Waylay. I find it to be better because it can deal with Chewbacca, whereas Waylay cannot deal with Chewbacca. So and Chewbacca is a very menacing presence in the meta. And in Depth to Crimson Dawn, I was kind of trolled for playing this card. Everyone said it's trash. And I mean, it's a very, very bad card if you draw it late. It's very much not impactful at all in the late game. It does nothing when you play it. But that's one thing with this deck. You can get away with bad draws. You always have something to do with your mana. Because worst case scenario, you can deploy your leader, draw another card, or see what happens. So it's not so like you're not a deck that like you basically can draw four cards per turn because your leader is a card, it draws a card, and then you have two cards like everyone else. So you're not the typical like control deck that gets screwed by bad top decks, and so you can afford to play a card like this that is very very bad late, but is absolutely back breaking on early on in the game, especially against aggressive decks. Like your opponent plays a one drop, and now if they want to play on curve, that one drop can't untap. If they want to attack and get value with this, they need to pay two. And this is good against aggro, but it's back breaking against Anakin. Like I think I played it a lot against Anakin against C3PO. Like they want their engines, but all of a sudden, if they want their engines to go on, they need to pay and they need to fall really behind on board. So it's not bad against Pershing as well, because the slower decks don't want to be on board, but either use your Pershing or your ramp. You can do both. And so I think, of course, both in Depth to Crimson Dawn and Frozen in Carbonite are really weak to upgrade the removal, but still they are cards that are really cheap, and even if your opponent removes them, they generally did their job, unless they remove them. I mean, Frozen in Carbonite, worst case scenario is a card that tapped a unit and took a card out of your opponent's hand. That's not good, but it's not horrible. And in that to Crimson Dawn, again, usually if you stop the unit for a couple of rounds, yeah, that's good enough. If then the opponent has to spend a card to remove this, whatever, yeah, good, fine. So they are weak to upgrade the removal, but they're not really bad. I really like them. They perform very well for me.
Okay. Now it's time to see the sideboard.
Okay.
And we can start from the
Yes,
cards.
all right. I mean, Sideboard is always like depending on what you expect is kind of a mind game that you have to play. the fate and the mechanics. And sometimes you win that mind game, sometimes you lose it. So the sideboard worked decently for me, but much like everything else, especially the sideboard is a work in progress. We can see two confiscate. Yes, that's a safe bet. Even though a lot of like really smart players, and what I've noticed is a trend that people take out their upgrades for game two because they know everyone runs confiscate, so they don't take out their upgrades, but they change their strategies. Like some people actually take out dark sabers from Sabine, and some people stop like playing pivots very heavily, like against Han Solo. I remember like this guy understood that I had confiscate in hand, so he started playing Poe Dameron. He played it as two different units as opposed to a big unit with an upgrade. So I'm not even sure I would run it in sideboard anymore because it's an amazing card, but it's a card that, like, I'm talking with other players. A lot of people play around this card in game two. So it's an interesting card. I don't know where I stand yet on the mind games. It's certainly back against pilot leaders, but I didn't meet any of them. So still a good card. Surprise Strike is an excellent card. I put it as a one-off because I want in a grinder game to have the chance to use it as a finisher with um, taking it back with Bounty Hunter Crew. Still, I think like it's a card that's really good. It costs two, so it makes like I don't want to clog my deck with two costs that I can't discard with Admiral Trench. So that's why I have it as a one-off to put in like in games where you either need to trade with the leader, like against Anakin is really strong because you can make Trench trade with Anakin. Um, but yeah, it's a card that I would like to try more. I think it can work really well. It just I couldn't find enough space because I was trying to counter too many different things. Evacuate is a really nice card as well. It's kind of bad that it costs six because it means that if you play this, like yeah, you want to play it on five, like it really works only if you have Bib Fortuna on. It's a lifesaver against like token decks, against spam decks, against Sabine it can be a lifesaver, but overall I think like I would probably go down to one. It's just really good. Like you need a card like this. I was like, if I face like ball like Rex Green or like Vader 4, what am I gonna do? And that's why I have a couple of equates because these cards are backbreaking for this kind of matchups. But the question is like those matchups were a lot less frequent than what I anticipated. I thought to see a lot of Vader pilot, but I didn't. And Eager Escort Fighter, similar reasoning. So a card that like you're certainly gonna see, and that this deck is kind of weak to, is Millennium Falcon, because Millennium Falcon is a 3/4, so it can be dealt with by with McClunky. If you freeze it in carbonite, the opponent is just gonna return to the hand. If you know good to me that the opponent is just gonna return to their hand. So I wanted something that acts as a sort of open fire. So this is a really bad open fire, but still a decent enough open fire that it can work. And yeah, so that's why I put it as a 4/1. Also, you can play it as a 4/1 if you want something like to do a barrage against a deck like a blue hero, like green blue hero that has no clue to how to deal with it. Like there are certain decks that really don't know how to deal one damage. Like so you can even play it as a 4/1. But overall, yeah, perform well. It's there to keep off space pressure. That can be a problem for a deck like this. Super Laser Technician, yeah, I should probably like go up to two in the main and one in the side, or even three in the main. Is a very very good card in all the slower matchups. It's very bad against aggro, but like yeah, is a great card. And then Devastator, of course, in a grindier matchup, sometimes like whoever gets the Devastator in wins. I mean, or whoever can reply to the opponent's Devastator with a Devastator wins. So of course, it's nice to have one inside to put on anytime you're gonna go longer and need a Devastator. Fennec Shand is very sad that I can't play this card in the main board because the synergy with Trench is insane. Like she can one shot most things, and so it's really good in matchups where you need to one shot a leader. It's very good against Anakin. Sometimes, if you worked really hard, you can deal 7 on turn 7. But the thing is, it's also very like a kind of situation in other matchups and is not as good as Maul or Cat Bane. So one from the side is really really good. And yeah, this is the deck.
Oh
Are you
yeah.
with us?
Oh yes, we can just try
Oh
to
yeah.
test the deck. I mean, we can simulate some drawings.
Oh, that's nice.
So we can just go for the first one. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, interesting. This is a really like, of course, as every draw, it depends on the matchup. So this deck has got like struggles. It's not one of these decks where you have multiple like one drops and you can play whatever you want. No,
Mm-hmm.
if you have something turn one, you kind of have to stick with it. And in this case, I think unless you're playing hard control, this is a pretty decent hand. And because you have like two odd shots, you're gonna resource and then you're probably playing that to Crimson Dawn. So against an aggro deck, this is great. Like, and then on top of what you're gonna resource, you need like you kind of need to already think what you're gonna discard with Trench on round one to make sure that you get better draws in the future. So here, I'm not just gonna say what I would resource, but also what I would discard. So you resource the hot shot blasters, and probably, and in like most scenarios, you're gonna resource the discard. Now there are two of them because yeah, it could be good with Boba Fett, but you have Palpatine's return as well. So probably unless you're against I mean, yeah, I would just get rid of the now there are two of them here because you have a follow up with Boba Fett anyways. But yeah, good end.
Okay. Second one?
Yeah, this is really hard hand because like of course if you are against our control, this is a really really hard hand because you have both Restock and Relentless in your hand and you can't resource any of those. So you would need to resource you can't resource Bazine. Yeah, you probably if you are against hard control, you probably need to resource Bazine and Overwhelming Barrage and discard the Relentless. So you can take it back and take your stock in hand or even play it at some point if you want. You can play it. You can just play it on the first round for nothing. I mean, but just to get it out of the hand because you would need to take it back at some point. Probably you can keep it in hand; it's safer. But what I mean is, you don't care if the stock gets discarded, but it's important that the stock doesn't finish in the resource row. So against any other deck, yeah, this is just a fine hand. Like you probably don't care about the restock or the relentless, and you can just play Bazin, then a supply, and then maybe you hit. Now there are two of them, and the opponent played nothing on round one, and you have a mole on round three. But this is like and then barrage to follow up. This is a dream, but like yeah, you can do something like that.
Okay. Third one.
Third one, again, I mean, it's acceptable. Like you probably like you can play Carter Spacer, so regardless of where your opponent's gonna develop, like you're gonna play McClunky the next turn. I would probably resource No Good to Me Dead, one of them, and then I would probably resource the Devastator. Ideally, if it's not a matchup where you really know that the good no good to me that is necessary. Like you don't have like against Queenland, for example, the leader is good, but it's not that good that you need to stop it like immediately. So you can probably be a bit greedier and like get rid of the Devastator. So you can, because against these matchups you can go late game, and you know that when you have a Palpatine's return, you can play a Devastator. So great, good hand as a keep.
Okay. So we can finish with the last one.
Same. Like I mean, this is a good keep. I mean, it's hard to say what I would keep or not keep depending on what you're facing. But like both, Carter Spacer is not ideal on turn one, but in depth to Crimson Dawn is probably really good on turn one. You can just play that, and then you can resource. What you resource? You probably resource Devastator as well because you want Counter Spacer and McClunky, or you can like resource the McClunkies, or you can resource Carter Space and McClunky and just discard Devastator. There are quite a few options. I would not discard the Palpatine's return. So you either resource the Devastator, or if you want to be a bit greedier and you see that it's a slow matchup where you don't really need the McClunkies or the Carter Spacer or the in-depth to Crimson Dawn. You can just like resource one of those, keep the Devastator in hand, discard it, and then you know that at some point it's gonna come back with Puppet's return.
Okay, okay. So it's the last slide, and as we have seen
Yes.
before, we have the deck image of the whole deck, the whole 60 cards plus the sideboard. So final comments. What do you have to say about this beautiful deck?
That I loved it. I had the time of my life. I went in there as a kid. I'm not really like a pro player. I didn't go to like the biggest event. I went. I mean, the most important for my heart was the Dark Players uh, gathering. So I had a great fun with this deck. I I mean, I think it's good. Like I really like Trench as a unit. I There are some issues with this deck. Of course, the math doesn't really like doesn't work necessarily well. The meta is okay for this deck, but it could be better. And at the end of the day, we have to borrow like a lot from Underworld. So I wish, like in the next set, my hope is that there are going to be more focused things on cycling from the discard pile, maybe force, like you can go with a different trade for the deck, a different angle, and that synergize more with Admiral Trench specifically. But for the moment, I'm gonna like this is an experiment, so I invite everyone to try it out and see if there are ways to improve the deck. I will do it myself. That is the reason why I went there with this test. I did this deck. I wanted to test it out. This is basically it, and I will test it out and see how it works. But yeah, I'm really happy we have this leader because it's something completely crazy and wild out of nowhere. So yeah, I thank you FFG for inventing Admiral Trench. No, but it's really nice. I think it's fun. Yeah. It's insane that you can have a leader that comes out whenever you want, like forever, on demand.
And also for those who haven't seen yet the
And
live stream of the Lille regional, please go to match number 7 where you can see the our DJ Clero playing his Trench Datafall against the Swedish player, and side bag, the plastic side bag from Sainsbury's. And
yeah, thank you, Sainsbury. Yes,
it was a lovely match.
and yeah, I'm not sure what to add, but yeah, it was a great run. Like I don't know if I will like I have no idea what I will do for the future, but for the moment, yes. Maybe one thing that I can say is that like I think there is a lot of potential in different colors as well with Admiral Trench. Like, I would like to see if someone can come up with something really good with blue, but not just blue. Like I think yellow, double yellow could be very nice because double yellow is a weak game against sometimes against really controlly decks that don't rely on units. So yeah, or even red. Like I think is a very flexible reader. So I'm very excited to see what other people come out with in the future. Something crazy, crazier yet.
We'll let you cook.
Yes,
As always. Okay, so by the way,
as always. Italian
as al-
cuisine.
yes, as always. And by the way, thank you everybody for listening us. Thank you DJ Clero for staying with us. I mean, this whole run of the deck tech. Congrats, still congrats
No problem.
for your result in the Lille regional, and we hope to see you very very soon in all the tournaments and in other deck techs. And yeah, well, you have to flex. Come on, flex,
Oh,
show off the
yeah. Show off the showcase.
yeah, showcase with the side
No,
bag.
thank you very much. Yeah. Yes.
And I mean,
No hassle in the castle. Thank you guys. See you.
okay, so see you in the next video from the last
Yeah.
players and DJ Clear. See
See
ya.
you next video. Subscribe and like that place. Like, thank you for our international guests. If anyone arrived all the way here, write something in the chat. But follow the Dark Players. They're very, very good. Italian, like, it's a
Thank you.
channel very close to my heart. They do their best. It's amazing. Give them a like. It's for free, my friends. Mm.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Please comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.
See you in the next
Cheers.
video. Bye bye. Cheers. Choose.
Bye bye. Bye bye.